I just want to talk to you about your Everton debut, making it as an
Yeah,
18-year-old at the San Siro against Inter Milan in the European Cup. You know that's a baptism of fire if ever there was one, isn't it?
yeah, it certainly was. Yeah, I played in the reserves on the Saturday, and I hadn't played in the first team at all. And I was told to report on the Monday because they were travelling to Milan on the Monday with me travelling gear and what have you. And I just naturally thought because you had all sorts of skips to carry then, and they usually the extra kids who was along with them, that was your job. And it wasn't until
mm.
just before kick-off that on the Wednesday night, in the afternoon, Harry Catterick told me that I was playing. And obviously kept it back a little bit just to save me thinking too much about it, which was very thoughtful of him. And he just said, Colin, you make your debut tonight, and that was it.
Mm. And having grown up as an Evertonian and in Liverpool, what was it like to finally be able to wear that blue shirt?
I mean, yeah, at the end of the season, I played in the B team, which is like there was the first team, A team, B team, and C team, and we managed to get after the game. We kicked off at 2 o'clock. We managed to get back down to Goodison, because in the afternoon Everton beat Fulham to clinch the championship, which is 1963, and that was in May. And I was just looking, and thinking, what a fantastic thing, winning the trophy, and I was there watching it, and May, June, July, August, September, 4 months later, I was playing in the European Cup.
And for people who didn't see you play, didn't have the opportunity to see you play that much, what were you like as a midfield player?
I wasn't a goal scorer. I would say reasonably creative. I could run all day, and I could tackle as well. So it was I was like a box to box midfield player, as Harry Catterick told me to do. And he just expected me to do everything he could from box to box, and that's what I tried to do. But once I got in the box, I was a pretty good goal scorer. I could pass it outside the box, but I couldn't shoot when I was in there.
Yeah, and Colin, yeah, you touched on Harry Catterick there. He was a manager that brought you through. You had a good relationship with him. What was he like to work under?
I think he was a very tough taskmaster, and he expected a lot of you, and I was to a certain extent in all of them around a little bit frightened, but also very respectful of him, because he always treated me well throughout my career, and he started off my career, and always, was a great source of help to me without being a very what's the word I'm looking for? He wasn't the most eloquent of men. He didn't over talk to you, but if you knew when he liked you, and you knew when he respected you, and I certainly thought he did that to me.
And during the 1960s period, there were a couple of FA Cup finals. You're a winner in 1966 and lost in 1968. But what was that like playing in a cup final for Everton?
In the 66 one, I scored the only goal in the semi-final. We beat Manchester United 1-0 at the old Baden Park Bolton game. So then it was 1-0 Alex Young at the bottom of the post, and it would have made it 2-0. And at the time you're thinking, I wish it had gone in. But when the game was over and you scored the only goal of the game that's took your club to the final, it's still a fantastic feeling even to this day. And to win we did, because we were 2-0 down at one stage to Sheffield Wednesday, and they were quite rightly the best team for an hour, but we came back in the last half hour and scored 3 goals. And the season previous, Liverpool had won the cup in 65, and had a couple of front mates who were Liverpoolians who kept ramming it at me, and obviously the year after we went and won it, and it was a fantastic feeling.
Absolutely, Colin. And before, as the team developed and the league championship was won in 1970, this Holy Trinity trio developed between yourself, Alan Ball, and Howard Kendall. You must have fond memories from that partnership.
Oh yeah, I mean, Bowley signed in '66, and we played on the Saturday. We played Liverpool in the Charity Shield at Goodison. It wasn't played at Wembley then at stage, and they beat us 1-0, and it could have been 4 or 5. They absolutely murdered us. And on the following Monday, Harry Catterick went out and bought Alan Ball, and 2 weeks later we played Liverpool at Goodison again, and we beat them 3-1, and we absolutely murdered them. The difference was Bowley really just raised the bar for all of us, you know, every day in training and everything else. It made you were all aspiring to be a better player, to try and be as good as him. And obviously, it dragged us all to be better players. And then Howard came the following season in '67, and we just seemed to have a blend. You know, the two of us were a little bit more defensive minded, and Bowley for the first 2 or 3 years was scoring 15, 16 goals. So we just gelled as a crease, and we were on the same wavelength football wise, and it was just one of those things that really we came together, and for 4 or 5 years everything went great.
Absolutely. And obviously the league championship came then in 1970. You scored the goal that clinched the title at Goodison against West Brom. I think it was an individual solo goal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I say, we got 5 or 6 years earlier I'd been at Goodison and saw a cup being raised and the actual trophy being presented to them. And on the night, we were in the middle of a fantastic run, and I think we'd done about 10, 11 games, winning 9 to 10 of them and drawing 1. And on the night, we played West Brom and played some fantastic stuff. And that just one of those games where I started off and I was big 1 man, big 2, big 3, and I thought, well, may as well have a shot, and it flew in the top corner, which was unusual for me, but it was just one of those nights. And we went up to stand to get the trophy. I could see my dad in the crowd and my granddad. It was just an amazing experience.
And what do you remember of Goodison Park of those days? Because it hasn't changed too much down the years, but the atmosphere...
No, it changed a few things, obviously, but it's still the same old Goodison Park that I knew since I was a kid. When I used to go when I was about 5 or 6, because we used to go on my dad would drop us off. He'd go on Gladys Street, and my brother and I go in the boys' pen, and we'd meet him afterwards. And it's changed a little bit, but not a great deal since those days. But, you know, because when my dad used to go, and his dad had flown, and my granddad on my mother's side were all Evertonians, so it was. And in fact, we lived just by the ground for a couple of years when I was a youngster. So it was just walking distance to go and watch games.
Absolutely, Colin. And taking things away from the club arena, you did receive international recognition in 1971. You got the 1 cap for England. Would you like more? Well.
Obviously, yeah. Obviously, in 1970, I'd gone to South America. Sorry, 69. I'd gone to South America in a party of 18 before the World Cup, and just to play the different grounds that we've gone to play in, and played against. One of the games was a Mexican 11. It wasn't classed as an international, and I played in that. And then there was a game against Brazil and a game against Chile as well. So but what happened was, you follow Steve, that developed an eye problem and didn't play for a long time. And it took me a while to get back to full fitness. And consequently, when the team was mentioned for 1970, I wasn't in it. But it does do, though. Whenever you get that quiz, we only played 1 game for England, I do get a mention in that. If I'd got a couple of World Cups, I probably wouldn't have got a quiz question.
Yeah, absolutely. And after a short spell at Sheffield Wednesday, you moved into coaching. First at Everton with Billy Bingham, and then you were kind of part of the Youth Cup side, or managed a Youth Cup side, including Kevin Ratcliffe. What was that like in your first kind of initial grounding in coaching?
Yeah, well, I came back in 76, left 74, and I had a couple of years at Sheffield Wednesday, and I didn't do them any favours because I'd developed a hip problem with it before I went, and I didn't do myself or do justice to Sheffield Wednesday. But Billy Bingham invited me back as youth team coach in 76, and I stayed on for quite a few years in different roles after that.
And then in, I think it was around 1981 when Harold Kendall became Everton manager, you were quite shortly after promoted to first team coach. So then you worked with that golden period in the 1980s along with Howard, who you played with as well. That must have been amazing.
Well, it was, yeah. I mean, it wasn't right away when he came back. You know, it was about a year or so later, and things just seemed to gel once again. We just had a fantastic period of about 6 or 7 years where everything we entered the run, and obviously we didn't get to go into what was still the European Cup then, because English Cups were hard in '85, the year we actually won the Cup Winners' Cup, and in great style as well, because we beat probably the best team in the tournament, Bayern Munich, in the semi-final, and then after that year the English teams were barred for Europe for 5 years, so we never got the opportunity to see it. We'd have been good enough to win the European Cup, but my feeling was that if everything had been right, we probably would have done, at least once maybe.
And what was your relationship with Howard, as in a coaching wise? You must have had a click.
Well, we would obviously he was the one who made the final judgment, but I was never afraid to say what I wanted to say, and if he thought it was any help at all, I'd always contribute that. But we worked pretty much as a partnership, and once again, as I say, it gelled, and everything went well for a few years.
And just a couple more final questions, Colin. When you became Everton manager as well, you've kind of been a player at the club, coach, and then moved through to management. Would that have been something you'd ever have thought you would have done when you were starting out as a player?
No. I mean, when you're a kid, your biggest ambition is to actually play football, but to coach, to manage the club, being a supporter as a kid was just unthinkable. It was just the fact that I played there at the start was absolutely amazing, because that's, as a kid, you don't want to be a manager, you don't want to be a coach, you want to be a footballer, don't you? And play for your local team, which you haven't always lucky enough to do.
And from Harry Catterick to David Moyes, who you've worked a bit under, how would you compare, perhaps, for example, those two managers?
Well, David, I didn't work a great deal under, but from the knowledge of what he's very much a hands-on coaching manager, whereas Harry Catterick was more a delegator. He let tell his coaching staff what he wanted, and they sort of did the day in day out work. Whereas he was a delegator, whereas David's more a hands-on man.
And finally, Colin, you spent over 40 years really worth of service with Everton. How much do you follow the club now, and what does it mean to you?
I don't know if you know, I work for Bolton now, but obviously the first result after the Bolton you look for is Everton's, because it's so much a part of your life, both as a kid and as a man. You just once an Evertonian, always an Evertonian, as someone quite rightly said.